Attention. Attenzione. Attenzione. You know those pickpocketing videos? Attenzione. Anyway, listen, some people had to get by. How's everybody doing? Episode 14. Who would have thought? First of all, the data. Listenership is up 10%. If we keep growing at this rate, we should have 100 listeners by 2075. Not bad. Slow and steady, as they always say. I just came back from Trinidad and Tobago, which I'm looking at the data now is third on the listener list, which apparently where my friends and family live. Okay, let's not go there. Listenership in order of most to fewest. Ireland, number 1. Clear winner, 44%. Canada, 20%. Trinidad, 12%. Pitiful. And then United States, the Netherlands, UAE, United Kingdom, and this is very exciting, Denmark on the board for the first time. France, Australia, Italy. I'm going to get a bit emotional here. The Philippines. The Philippines. That is incredible. Shout out to people like Baha'i, my Filipino-Irish friends. Maybe somehow their family's listening because they're worried about them. Who knows? But that is the story. I just came back from Trinidad, more on that later. So we're growing, everybody. We are growing. Leaps and bounds is the expression. And it's apt. It is apt. These flowers, freshly brought in at some stage. And now they are a little bit still looking good. They have a charm to them, but they're older. Like me. These flowers represent me. Okay? Got some Wes Anderson filmmaking there. In a regular everyday podcast that you chose to listen to on your drive. What are you doing right now? You're trying to figure out life maybe. You're going for a walk. You're trying to beat a panic attack. So you're doing your breath work while listening to me. Just know that we've all been there, buddy. We've all been there. You're driving down the road. Your girlfriend's in the car. You're trying to say, this guy's usually very funny. He's usually very funny. He's just listen, honey. Just listen. I am. Listen. Listen. So, good news straight out the top. The crackhead who lived upstairs in my building has finally been vanquished from their domicile. Some of you might remember in episode 7, I believe it is, that I had a physical altercation with somebody upstairs. And what happened? Well, I estrangulated him, which is the technical term. I didn't want to, but I was all hopped up on sweat and grease. I was working the fryers that night. That's what it is in a restaurant business. Sometimes you have to jump all over the place. So I came home, I was all hopped up on fryer grease, fumes, and I had a sheen on my body. And that thin little fryer grease sheen, I figured offered me some kind of protection. If a knife even tried to pass on my flesh, it would slide right off. That's why in some communities, they rub Vaseline on their face before they get in a fight. So that the scratches and the punches just go, wee, 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 right off the face. They don't even touch your skin. They sit in that upper dermal level, and they just float right off. I have the oil, grease, and I have the hair. So I was good to go. So I came home, we had an altercation. This was the lady's brother, which I only realized when he was waking up from his street nap. And I was screaming at him. She was like, that's me brother. I fucking swear that's my brother. But anyway, the problem was, when they first came in, they had a family. Her, the brother. No, not the brother. What do you call it? The husband or partner, whatever. Baby daddy. 2 children. Soon after, 1 child left. Next child, 11 years old. And this kind of stuff is just, you know what I mean? You're just kind of like, are they going to pull out? The life plane is in free dive. Are they going to pull out and fix this shit? Well, I'm here to tell you that did not happen. And over the next 2 years, the whole thing just devolved, descended into chaos, absolute bacchanal, especially at the end there. Started off kind of nice. They was just smoking plenty weed, and who cares about that? Let me get high grade. Talking about high grade. Excuse me. High grade. Switch to the head voice. Get the clarity without the depth. So, it just got crazy. There were fights. There were people in the thing. And then the final straw was somebody threatened somebody else with a firearm. And then we got on to everybody. Dublin City Council. We got on to the Housing Association. We got on to some TDs, some ministers, most importantly, Sinn Féin. And for my non-Irish listeners, so the other 57% of the listeners, Sinn Féin is a party that was born out of the IRA. They were absolutists when it came to freedoms, right? They were just like, listen, we want a united free Ireland, bottom line. That's why they fought a lot in the North, because the North didn't really want that. And so therefore, I messaged him, because word on the street is a lot of them are kind of ex-IRA members or children of the IRA or whatever. And if you had problems, especially with drugs, they would reach through their channels and they would kind of strangle you. Or they would like kneecap you or whatever. I didn't want this to happen to this family. But I wanted them to leave. So I wanted him to put pressure on the government. And anyway, the husband left. The child got taken away. All this shit started happening. Then the brother came to live and he was chaos. And all of his young, dumb Dublin friends were making noise and threatening people. Terrible shit. So I reached out to Sinn Féin guy. So there's a few political parties. There's tons of political parties in it. But the three main ones, Fianna Gael, Fianna Fáil, they hold like the majority. And then Sinn Féin is like, there's a wild card. But back in the days, they were the one fighting. During the Irish Civil War, after the provisional government signed the treaty, which basically said that Ireland was, its own thing, but it was still, you had to kind of salute to the Queen, they had to get up in the Parliament and salute the Queen at the start and all, and, they had just finished the War of Independence, so they were like, we're not fucking doing that. Sorry, not the Queen, the King at this stage. This is in the 19s, going into the 1920s. So they was like, we're not doing that. So, as goes in Ireland, instead of going with the treaty and saying, all right, look, we'll sort this out, we'll work with this until we get full independence, and then saluting the king before Parliament started and all that kind of shit, they decided, let's just have a bloody violent civil war. Potato versus potato. That was the name of the court case, Potato v. Potato. So a few thousand people died. And I'm reading a book about it now, so I don't know what happened. I'm right in the middle of it. They're killing each other, and Churchill, such a nice guy. Winston Churchill, what a goofball. Such a nice fella, and he just wants the best. He basically armed the pro-treaty side, the treaty that they signed that said, yeah, okay, we're Irish, but we're a Commonwealth country. So he just gave them a bunch of guns, 700 rifles and like 50-something machine guns. Cannons, maybe, I don't know. So that made things better, because that's what Winston Churchill is known for, is kind of calming the situation down. So anyway, after that came Sinn Féin, and I reached out to this guy and I was like, yo, what's going on? I heard you're man the people. He reaches back and he's like, Eamon, my brother, in Gaelic, he's like, give me the names right now. Now, I don't know if he had anything to do with it, but I'll tell you this. She gone. A week and a half later, she's gone. Everybody else in the building wrote letters to everybody. We made a huge thing. So she got rehoused into another building. Thank God. So there's peace at last. Peace at last. What is peace worth? When you don't have peace, peace is worth everything. When you've had it for a long time, you kind of take it for granted. Like the United States of America has 11 what you call them things, boy, with the planes? Aircraft carriers. They have 11, okay? And the reason is that usually, so there's 2 extras kind of doing whatever. There's 3 that are usually being repaired in some dock somewhere. There's another 3 training, and there's another 3 just roaming, just looking to blow up people of off-white nature all around the world. And the reason for that is nobody on the Californian coast ever has to worry about an invasion. You know what I mean? No Japanese boat is ever gonna pull up on the California coast and just sort of murk down people. The Russians will never invade Alaska, and that is the reason. And this whole thing really had me thinking about peace of mind, you know? So my family lives back home in Trinidad, and they always talk about how it's violent down there. But you have your own kind of personal peace in your home. You know, you have your gates and your walls, and you keep people out or whatever. And for the most part, the vast majority of crime is, you know, gang on gang. But it does spill over. And you don't, peace is something you take for granted. You really take peace for granted. And the last few months with that woman upstairs has been mad. So she's gone. And let me tell you something. Peace of mind. Peace of mind. The best. So I just came back from Trinidad. I was supposed to do a podcast with my good friend and historian, K Money. She goes by Cree or Chris. Kiristin, sometimes she goes by. We didn't get a chance to do it, but I'm going to try and figure out some other way to figure it out so that we can have an interaction, because she knows an incredible amount about history. I would love to learn more. I'm reading, I'm educating myself. Not like you're listening to this radio, you're listening to a podcast. You're not learning anything. You're getting second, third hand knowledge from a basic fool. But I make you laugh. And isn't that the best part of it? Every now and again you laugh. And if you're a man, you know, one testicle moves over to the right side and they just, you know what I mean, it's kind of inside of there and they're lathering up and the blood is flowing and you just feel good about your day and your belly is nice. And if you're a lady, same thing, you know what I mean? Moisture. Humorous moisture. Ugh! That's your fault. You chose this to happen. So I went home to Trinidad. Wonderful to see the family. Very different life. And the chaos. I kind of miss the wild chaos, the heat. I mean, it was so hot down there. You know, people kept saying, oh God, stop posting all these sunshine. You know, we in Dublin, we blind Canada, whatever, we freezing over here. You know, not all of us is on vacation. People were getting upset. But it wasn't all sunshine and roses over there. For instance, the pool in the house that I was staying was way too warm. So I could never actually get cooled off. From the heat, there was no escape from the heat. And the cold water in the shower, guess what? The pipes run outside. What happens outside? Fire rains down from the sun and heats it up. So there's no reprieve. Yes, there's air conditioning, that kind of stuff. Don't get me wrong. Right? So the vacation wasn't all rose petals and, you know, oh gosh, she's in this. No, it was quite uncomfortable actually, because I was not able to cool off. My body runs hot. We've talked about this already. I'm of Portuguese descent. You know, hairy Portuguese descent. His face is, you know, the face is a little spotty, right? The Portuguese and the Irish kind of fighting with the face there. But as it goes down, the chest starts to grow up, starts to turn into a real boy, starts to get thick, starts to get curly. Then it tapers off into a nice little flirtatious twink right here. Right? The triangle, if you draw the nipples and connect them and then come down a couple inches, it just tapers a little bit and then it's not going away, huh? It's just flirting with that, it might go away. And then it goes down, and as we approach the belly button, it starts to grow out, starts to shake off its wings, it starts to spread out, get curly and thicker. And then as soon as you get below the waist, well, boy, woo-wee, I hope you have a weed waka. to deal with the situation there. I've said this before, I'm very happy with my penis. Okay? It's not the biggest or the thickest or the whatever. The color is, the color is nice, I suppose. A little bit more tan than the rest of my body. But there's nothing wrong with that. But if I don't trim my situation here, it looks like a clitoris sitting on top of a hedge. So you gotta trim it down. So my Portuguese body runs hot. Okay? It runs hot. Everybody, oh God, why can you? Oh gosh, we balling here, it's cold. You're on vacation. Yeah, it wasn't a vacation, okay? It was alright. It was okay. Nice to see the friends and the family. But everybody's getting older, which makes me think, where should I spend the rest of my life? My son has now spent most of his time in Ireland. My other son, who was born here, obviously same. But maybe it's time for Trinidadian adventure. An adventure in the sun where everyone has guns. There is something romantic about that, about carrying a gun. Like here in Ireland, you're just at the mercy of how crazy the people you run into that day is. You're really you're staying in the mix. And you just walk around, you're bumping off the people and you hope they don't stab you. London is worse. But you can't carry anything. You can't carry pepper spray. Brass knuckles or knuckle dusters, as they call it here. Which is a hilarious term. They boil everything down here to like the most hilariously, ridiculously docile and sanitized version. Y'all have heard me talk about it already. Somebody who's a raging alcoholic, fan of the drink, likes a pint, right? Crippling anxiety and depression, trouble with his nerves, trouble with her nerves. The genocidal campaign of the Northern Ireland British forces against the Catholics and the bombings of the IRA. Okay? The Troubles. There's a spot of bother up there. The Troubles, we call it the Troubles. There was some trouble up there. What happened? There was some trouble. How you mean trouble? Well, people were blown into pieces. Children were assassinated with machine guns. It was a little bit of trouble. A little bit of trouble. What's the big deal? What is the big deal? And that is the Irish psyche. The Irish psyche is, what is the big deal? For instance, our neighbor who we spoke about 6 minutes ago. Okay? Drug dealing, threatening people with guns. Antisocial behavior. What's a little antisocial behavior? What is the big deal? That should be the slogan for Ireland. The slogan in Ireland should be, what is the big deal? So what if you have a couple of pints and go home and beat your wife? What is the big deal? He likes a pint. So what if you've called the suicide hotline 6 times this week? She has a trouble with her nerves, just some nerve trouble, just the nerves. A bit of, trouble with their mental health. So what? That the IRA put a bomb in a bus that blew up a bunch of Protestant nuns. It was a bit of trouble, a spot of ball. What is the big deal? What is it? It's just trouble, a little trouble. It's a little trouble. The neighbor came over with a gun and told your son to go outside and pick the butts out of the cigarette butt can that have a little bit of tobacco on it. What is it? It's he's being antisocial. Antisocial behavior. What is the big deal? Let's get on with our lives. Let's not make a big deal. That is the Irish way. What's the big deal? Let's not make a big deal. Let's not make a scene. They could use with a bit more scene making here. They could use it a bit more scene making. That is probably a little bit of inheritance from the British. Because what they don't tell you about when there is a diabolical colonialist iron-fisted rule over a place where if you don't act right, you get murdered, or slavery, indentured servants, as the Irish were called when they got shipped all over the country. What they don't tell you, and the most sinister part of being controlled in that way, is it is a form of selective breeding. Eamon, what does that mean? Isn't that a bit too far? It is not, fool. You're not thinking. Who makes all the noise in these situations? Who joins the IRA? Who, you know what I mean? What type of slaves revolt? The ones with some nuts. The ones who know how to make a scene. The ones ain't taking no shit. And then what happens? That bloodline. They get murdered. They get fucking murdered. He was murdered. And God Sheikh Connor said that the man was murdered. I would murder him if I were you. Right? So what happens? You get rid of that bloodline. Right? Or you get put in jail. What happens when you're in jail? Sure, you're busting up a man's ass. You're putting some nuts inside of there. But where you not putting nuts? Inside of ladies who could have your children. Spawn. Your troublemaking, not shit taking, badass fucking spawn stops right there. Doesn't it? I'm warm now, but I'm getting heated. But that's what it is, selective breeding. Nobody talks about that. And that's the worst part. So in Ireland, it's 700 or 800 years of selective breeding. Because of course, as soon as you try to kick up a fuss, you got hanged, or hung, or you went to jail forever, or you got shipped off, bro. Where you got shipped off? The Caribbean, the southern United States, and the wildest of all, Australia. You understand? That's why people so fucking wild in the Caribbean. That's why the southern United States are, real wild. And Australia, same thing. You ship them away. So what happens to the native island? You're left with docile, law-abiding people who, when they see that a man is butchered with machetes, they say, "Oh, Jesus Christ, that's some antisocial behavior, isn't it?" So it's okay, but easy with your tone there, Dermot. Okay? It's just a little antisocial behavior. It's nothing to talk about. It's no big deal. 3 women were stabbed to death in the Dublin city centre. It's a bit of antisocial behavior. What is the big deal? Are we going to make a scene about this? You know? So that's the story there. What can we say? You've learned a lot. Historically, I taught you a lot. You've learned new phrases. You've learned theories that you've never thought about before. Selective breeding. Okay, next time you have a couple of drinks and people are talking about how horrible colonialism is, you wait till the room quiets down. And then you say, boy, the worst part is, and this is after they've talked about the genocide and the mutilation and the loss of culture. You say, boy, the worst part is, it's really a selective breeding program. What you mean by that, boy? What you talking about? Ting. And then you just lay some knowledge on them. And boy, you look like you are well read, probably well hung. If you're a lady, you look like you know your shit. You're not to be trifled with. And at that, you have now turned the whole line, the whole conversation towards you. And now you opening the floor to the next topic, which could be anything. Could be jelking, could be soaking, could be the global heat island effect, could be the Nostradamus symposium. You understand what I'm saying? What are those things? None of them make any goddamn sense, but you could invent them. Just invent them. This podcast is going so good, and some fool came outside and beat the horn now. Anyway, horn should be banned. Let me not get on that topic. We're at 25 minutes now. This is a great place to end. I love you all. I hope everybody is carrying along their life in a way that is respectful to the neighbors. And remember, do unto others is not really applicable if you are an asshole. So just do nice things. I love you. Goodbye.